The billionaire had watched it all from the balcony. He saw the woman pour the liquid. He saw the match drop. He saw his pregnant daughter-in-law dive into the pool, dress on fire, belly first. And he saw his own son standing 50 feet away doing absolutely nothing. Robert Mitchell had spent 63 years building an empire. He had covered for Ryan his entire life, paid off accusers, made problems disappear, told himself it was just boys being shoes.
I'm truly sorry,
That
sweetheart.
night, standing on the balcony watching Claire burn, something in him finally broke. By morning, he had hired investigators. By the afternoon, they had found everything. $80,000 spent on a secret apartment, embezzlement, emails detailing a plan to abandon Claire the moment their baby was born. His own son, his own money, his own grandchild used as a pawn. Robert made a choice that night, not for his family name, not for the company, for Claire. Real family, Ramos, isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who chooses to stand by you when everyone else turns away. This story will remind you that redemption can come from the most unexpected places. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because every week we bring you stories about people who chose courage over comfort.
The emergency room was cold and bright, a sharp contrast to the fire. A nurse asked her to rate the pain on a scale of 1 to 10. It was an 8, but it felt like 100. Worse than the burns were the contractions. They were regular and much, much too early. As a doctor gave her medicine to stop the labor, Ryan finally appeared in the doorway. His white shirt was untucked, his hair a mess. Emma immediately moved to block him. "You need to leave," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "You were not there for her." "I was in shock," Ryan stammered, his eyes wide. "You were with her," Emma shot back, her words like daggers. "We all saw you." Claire's voice cut through the tension, quiet and dangerous. "Ryan," she said without looking at him, "were you with Vanessa before tonight?" He hesitated for 3 seconds too long. "It is not what you think," he pleaded. "I need to hear it from you," Claire insisted, finally turning her head. "Tell me the truth." Ryan finally admitted to a brief thing that happened months ago. He swore he had ended it and that Vanessa was obsessed. But his father's voice boomed from the doorway. "Answer her question, Ryan." Robert Mitchell had followed them to the hospital, his face grim. Pinned by his father's powerful gaze, Ryan crumbled. It was ongoing for a while. The words shattered what was left of Claire's world. As if on cue, his phone began buzzing, over and over in his pocket. "Is that her?" Claire asked numbly. "Is Vanessa calling you from jail?" Robert Mitchell stepped forward, his expression like ice. He looked from his pale, trembling son to Claire. "Ryan," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument, "Douglas is no longer your attorney. He now works for Claire. You will not contact her or your child again." Ryan started to protest, but his father cut him off. "You are no longer an officer of my company, and you are no longer my son." Robert then turned to Claire. "You and this baby are my family now. You will have everything you need." And he kept his word. Vanessa was sentenced to life in prison. Ryan lost his job, his inheritance, and his family. Claire gave birth to a healthy baby girl she named Hope. With Robert's support, she built a new, peaceful life, proving that from the ashes of betrayal, the strongest souls can rise again. A lawyer is on his way, but he represents Claire, not you. If you want legal counsel, you find it yourself. Now get out of this room. Robert's voice was pure steel. "Security will show you out. You may wait in the lobby, but you will not come near Claire again without my permission." "I have every right to be here," Ryan argued. "She is my wife." "She is also the victim of an attempted murder," Robert countered. "And the police have a lot of questions for you." 2 hospital security guards materialized behind Robert. They did not touch Ryan, but their presence was a clear message. Ryan glanced at Claire, but she turned her head away. "Fine," he snapped. But this isn't finished, Claire. We will talk when you are thinking straight. He said it as if she was the one who was confused. Ryan left with the guards trailing him. Emma immediately locked the door. Robert walked to Claire's bed slowly, careful not to startle her. How are you feeling? Like I was set on fire, Claire answered, her voice trembling. Because someone did set me on fire. The police are here. They need your statement, but only when you feel ready, Robert said. What did you see from the balcony? Claire asked. Needing to know, what exactly did you see? Robert moved a chair beside her bed. This powerful man, who ran boardrooms and built skyscrapers, sat down to meet her gaze. I saw a woman come up behind you, he said softly. I saw her pour something on your dress and then light a match. I watched you run into the pool, and I saw Ryan, standing 50 feet away, doing absolutely nothing. He was in shock, Claire said, the defense coming automatically. No, Robert replied, his voice firm. I have spent 63 years reading people. Shock looks very different from calculation. Ryan was weighing his options. Just then, the door opened. A detective and a uniformed officer entered. The detective was a woman in her 40s, with short, gray hair and tired eyes. Mrs. Mitchell, I am Detective Sarah Walsh. I need to ask you some questions. Claire simply nodded. Do you know of Vanessa Hayes? Yes, Claire said. She is my husband's coworker. Have you ever felt threatened by her? Claire remembered the holiday party, seeing Vanessa's hand on Ryan's arm, and the possessive way she had looked at Claire. I always thought she was a little too friendly with Ryan, Claire admitted, but I never imagined this. Did your husband ever mention problems with Miss Hayes? Any kind of harassment? No, Claire said quietly. He told me not to worry about her. Detective Walsh made a note. Miss Hayes is in custody for attempted murder. She has confessed. She claims she was distraught because your husband ended their affair. The word affair sounded wrong. It made it sound legitimate, like something that could end instead of something that never should have started. How long? Claire asked, her voice barely a whisper. Miss Hayes says it was for 18 months, the detective answered. Can you confirm that? 18 months. Claire was 7 months pregnant. 18 minus 7 is 11. Ryan had gotten her pregnant 11 months into an affair with Vanessa. Mrs. Mitchell? Detective Walsh asked gently. I think I am going to be sick, Claire whispered. Emma rushed over with a basin just in time. Claire's body heaved, trying to expel the poison of the truth, but it was already inside her, tainting every single memory. Emma gently wiped her face with a cool cloth. We can stop for now, Detective Walsh offered. But did you have any idea your husband was having an affair? A broken laugh escaped Claire's lips. I am pregnant. I have been exhausted and sick and focused on becoming a mother. I trusted him. I believed his stories about working late. I believed him when he called me paranoid. I believed every single lie. She was sobbing now, the tears mixing with the water on her face. The hospital room was dark, lit only by the faint glow of the monitors. Emma was asleep in a chair by the window, but Claire could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flames and smelled the gasoline. Then, the baby kicked. The small movements were a reassurance. The contractions had stopped 3 hours ago. The medicine was working. Her daughter was safe. A nurse came in at 2 a.m, but Claire feigned sleep. She did not want to talk or hear empty promises that everything would be okay. Because it would not be okay. Her husband had a mistress for 18 months. He got Claire pregnant during the affair. He knew his mistress was unstable, yet he brought her to a family wedding. He just stood there and watched while Claire was on fire. The sterile hospital smell triggered a memory from 6 months ago. Claire was 4 months pregnant. Ryan came home late, claiming he had a meeting. He went straight into the shower. When Claire hugged him, she smelled a sweet, floral perfume that was not hers. "Did you hug a client?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "What? No? Why?" "You have perfume on you." Ryan tensed and then forced a laugh. "Claire, you are being paranoid. I took the subway. A woman must have stood too close. Maybe I am just sensitive from the pregnancy," she had said. "The hormones make me crazy." "That must be it," Ryan said, kissing her forehead. "You need to relax. Stress is bad for the baby." He used that line on her for months, anytime she questioned him, anytime her intuition told her something was wrong. He had used her love for their daughter as a weapon against her. Claire's phone vibrated. It was a text from Bridget. "I have all the photos and the video. The police have copies, but I have the originals." Another text came from an unknown number. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Douglas Harper. Your father has retained me as your attorney. I will be at the hospital at 8 o'clock in the morning with some documents." Claire stared at the words. Her attorney. Not Ryan's. Hers. The phone buzzed again. It was Ryan. "Claire, please, I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I love you. I love our baby. Please just talk to me." She deleted his message without a second thought. The vibration triggered another memory. 4 months ago, at the company holiday party, she was 5 months pregnant. When she came back from the restroom, she saw Vanessa touching Ryan's arm with a familiar intimacy. Ryan was smiling. He was not pulling away. When Claire approached, Vanessa dropped her hand, but it was too late. "Claire," Ryan had said, a little too loudly. "Vanessa was just telling me about an account. Work never stops, even at a party," Vanessa said, with a bright, fake smile. "You are so lucky, Claire. Ryan talks about you constantly." The lie was so smooth, so practiced. Claire felt in her gut that something was wrong. In the cab on the way home, Ryan had said, "Do not be jealous. Vanessa is just friendly. That is how she is." "She was touching you," Claire pointed out. "She is Italian," Ryan had said dismissively. "They're just more physical. You are reading too much into it." And Claire had let it go. She had ignored her instincts because he had made her feel foolish. She had chosen the comfortable lie over the awful truth. The door to her hospital room opened, and Claire tensed. It was not a nurse. Douglas Harper walked in. He looked to be in his late 40s, with graying hair and a kind face. Douglas Harper looked like a man who had seen the worst of people, but still chose to be kind. "I know it's early," he said softly, looking over at Emma, who was still asleep. "But you need to see this now." He pulled a chair to Claire's bedside and opened his laptop. He explained that Robert, her father-in-law, had hired a forensic accountant. They wanted to know everything before taking any legal steps. Claire's voice was a rough whisper. "Legal steps?" Douglas replied, "Most likely a divorce. Considering everything, but we found things that go far beyond cheating." He angled the screen so she could see. It was filled with bank records and credit card statements, with lines highlighted in yellow. "Ryan has a second apartment," Douglas said. "He's been paying rent on it for 18 months. The charges were for a building in Tribeca, an expensive neighborhood she and Ryan could only dream about. He told me we couldn't afford to leave Queens," Claire said, her voice hollow. "He said we had to save for the baby." Douglas nodded grimly. "He also bought expensive jewelry from Tiffany's, paid for fancy hotel rooms, and ate at high-end restaurants, all while you were pregnant." Claire's hands instinctively went to her stomach, and the baby gave a little kick. "How much?" she whispered. "In total?" "Roughly $80,000 over the last 18 months, Douglas answered. "All while he told you money was tight." $80,000. Claire felt sick. She had given up her daily coffee to save a few dollars. She had told herself they could not afford a nurse to help after the baby came. She had spent nights worrying about the cost of daycare. "There is more," Douglas said gently. The accountant got into Ryan's work emails. Since Robert owns the company, it was completely legal. "I have to warn you, Claire, this is going to hurt." "More than being set on fire?" Claire asked bitterly. "More than finding out my husband has been lying for a year and a half?" Douglas simply handed her the laptop. An email from Ryan to a woman named Vanessa Hayes was on the screen. It was sent 3 months ago. The subject line was just his initial. "I know this is difficult," it read, "but you knew what this was from the start. Claire is pregnant with my father's first grandchild, so the timing is tricky. Just give me 6 months after the baby is born to sort things out. We can't be public right now, but that doesn't change how I feel. Please be patient." Claire read the words 3 times. Each one was a new wound. Sort things out meant a divorce. Can't be public meant he was hiding. My father's first grandchild meant she was just a duty to be fulfilled. She was not his wife. She was his obligation, a problem that would soon be handled. "There are dozens more," Douglas said. "Love letters, emails, making plans. Some are from just a few days ago." Claire's hands began to tremble. She twisted her wedding ring on her finger, an old nervous habit she thought she had outgrown. "What did the one from 3 days ago say?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Douglas paused. "Are you sure you want to see it? Tell me." He clicked open another message from Ryan to Vanessa. This one was sent just 4 days before the wedding she had attended. "I know you're angry you can't be my date to Jennifer's wedding," Ryan wrote, "but my entire family will be there with Claire. Just hang on for a few more months. After the baby arrives and things calm down, I'll tell Claire I want out. Then we can finally be together for real. I promise. It will be worth it." A few more months. He was going to tell her he wanted out. The entire plan had been laid out. Claire was supposed to have his child, secure his place in his father's company, and then be thrown away. Emma began to wake up in her chair. She saw Claire staring at the screen, with tears silently pouring down her cheeks. "Claire, what is it? Is it the baby?" "He never wanted us," Claire said, her voice sounding faint and far away. "Ryan never wanted me or this baby. We were just part of his plan." Emma was by her side in an instant, reading the email over her shoulder. Her face turned pale, then flushed with fury. "I am going to kill him," she seethed. "Emma, he was going to leave me right after the baby was born," Claire repeated, in disbelief. "It was all planned." Douglas quietly closed the laptop. "I am sorry you had to read that, but you need to understand who you are up against. Ryan is not just a cheater. He is a cold and calculating man, and judging by what Vanessa did, he might even be dangerous." "She tried to kill me because she loved him," Claire said, the insanity of it all crashing down on her. "She thought I was the one stealing him, but he was never mine to begin with." The baby kicked again, hard, as if in protest. "You have her," Emma said, placing a hand on Claire's belly. "And you have us. And now you have the truth." The truth. Every happy memory was now poisoned. Every "I love you" was now a lie. Claire remembered the day she told Ryan she was pregnant. She had seen the positive test and driven straight to his office. He had seemed surprised at first, then happy. But she now remembered something else in his eyes that she had ignored. He had paused for just a second before smiling, before hugging her. He had been calculating how this new development would affect his plan. "There's one last thing," Douglas said. "Vanessa is now telling the police that Ryan encouraged her. She claims he told her over and over that if you were gone, they could be together." The room started to spin, and the heart monitor next to Claire's bed began to beep wildly. A nurse rushed in. "Her blood pressure is through the roof," the nurse said urgently. "Everyone needs to get out, now." Emma started to protest, but the nurse was firm. "Out. She needs to be calm or she could lose this baby." After they left, the nurse adjusted Claire's IV, and a calm, floaty feeling washed over her. "Breathe," the nurse instructed. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. Your baby needs you." Claire focused on her breathing, feeling the air move in and out. She watched the sun rise, painting the sky in soft colors. The city was coming to life, full of people whose worlds had not just been destroyed. She was set on fire, but reading those emails was the thing that truly burned her. The fire had scarred her body, but the truth had shattered her soul. The woman who believed in love and happy endings was gone. She had no idea who was going to rise from the ashes. Morning came with a harsh light and even harsher realities. Claire was moved to a private room, a decision made by Robert for better security. Reporters were already calling the hospital, having caught wind of the story. A pregnant woman attacked by her husband's mistress at a wedding. Douglas Harper came back at 8 o'clock, just as he had promised. But this time, Ryan's mother, Patricia Mitchell, was with him. Patricia stood in the doorway, looking flawless as always, but her perfect composure was gone. She looked frail and much older. "May I come in?" she asked. Claire simply nodded. Patricia sat down next to the bed, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "I need to apologize to you," she began. "For what?" Claire asked. "For raising a man who could do something like this," Patricia said, her voice shaking slightly. "For not seeing who he really was. For making excuses for him when I should have been asking hard questions." Emma stood up, ready to protect Claire, but Patricia raised a hand. "I am not here to make excuses for him," she insisted. "Robert showed me everything, the emails, the bank statements, and I finally realized I have been lying to myself about my son for a very long time." Douglas cleared his throat, but Patricia cut him off. "No," she said. "Claire needs to hear this. Ryan has always been a manipulator. Even as a boy, he knew exactly what to say to get what he wanted. I told myself he was just smart, but it was always about control." She opened her purse and took out a small jewelry box. "This ring belonged to my grandmother," Patricia explained, opening the lid to reveal a beautiful emerald surrounded by diamonds. "It is supposed to be for the women who marry into our family. I never gave it to you because I honestly did not think your marriage would last. I thought you were too gentle for Ryan, too kind." Claire flinched. "I was wrong," Patricia said. "Being gentle is not the same as being weak. You are so much stronger than my son will ever be. This ring belongs to a woman with true character. You have earned it." She held the box out to Claire. "I do not want to be a Mitchell anymore," Claire said quietly. "Then do not be," Patricia replied. "But take this for your daughter. She is a Mitchell, and she deserves to have something from this family that stands for what we should be, not for what Ryan is." Claire accepted the box, feeling the weight of it in her hand. "Thank you," she whispered. Patricia gave a quick nod and then left the room. "Well, did that really just happen?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. "There is more," Douglas said, opening his laptop once again. "It gets worse." "How can it possibly get any worse?" Claire asked, exhausted. Douglas showed her one final email, sent from Ryan to Vanessa 3 weeks before the wedding. The subject was, "I cannot do this anymore." "You are being dramatic," Ryan had written. "Claire means nothing to me. This pregnancy was a strategy. My father wanted an heir, and I gave him one. Once the baby is born, it is over. Once the baby is born and my job is secure, I will divorce her. But you have to stop with this jealousy. It is wearing me out. If you love me, you will wait. The pregnancy was a strategy. not a love story. That single word, strategy, echoed in Claire's mind. Their baby, the little girl currently kicking inside her, was just a part of a plan. Claire felt a wave of nausea. Emma quickly handed her a basin, but only bitter bile came up. Douglas spoke quietly, pointing to the screen. There's a clear pattern here. Ryan tells Vanessa exactly what she needs to hear to keep her around. He promises a future and dismisses Claire, all while twisting her perception of reality. He showed them another email from Ryan to Vanessa, dated 1 month ago. Vanessa had written, "I saw you with her." Ryan replied, "Your jealousy is becoming a serious problem. I have to keep up the act. Touching Claire in public means nothing. You are the one I truly want. But if you cannot trust me, maybe we need some time apart." He was making her think she was the crazy one, Emma said, her voice filled with disgust. He was doing it on purpose. That is exactly what the prosecution believes, Douglas said. Vanessa has a long history of anxiety and depression. Ryan knew this. He used her emotional vulnerabilities, convincing her that Claire was the real threat. He turned her own mental health against her, Claire whispered. And against me, Douglas nodded grimly. Vanessa's lawyer is arguing that Ryan manipulated her into the attack. They are not saying she is innocent, but that Ryan is just as guilty. Does she have any evidence? Emma asked. She recorded some of their phone calls, Douglas replied, pulling up an audio file. The police have this now. Are you ready to listen? Claire took a deep breath and nodded. Douglas pressed play. Ryan's voice filled the room, cold and annoyed. Vanessa, you must calm down. I cannot have this fight again. Vanessa sounded like she was crying. You promised you would leave her after the baby arrived, but you act like a happy family. I saw your post online. You called her your whole world. That is for my father, Ryan sighed. It is about the company's image. None of it is real. Then why not tell her about us? Because the timing is terrible. My father just promoted me to director of the East Coast Division. If my marriage falls apart right now, I will lose everything. You need to be patient. I am so tired of being your secret. Well, maybe you are not strong enough for this. I need a woman who is patient, not one who crumbles under pressure. If you cannot handle it, I can find someone who will. After a moment of silence, Vanessa's broken voice came through. No, I can handle it. I am sorry. I will do better. Good, Ryan said coldly. I cannot deal with this drama. I have enough to worry about with Claire crying over baby nonsense all the time. The recording stopped. Claire felt a cold emptiness spread through her. He was going to throw her away too, she realized, as soon as she was no longer useful. Yes, Douglas confirmed. Ryan uses people. When he is done with them, he discards them. Emma was pacing the room, her hands in tight fists. Can we use this recording to prove he planned the attack? The prosecution is trying, Douglas said. But Claire, you have to know what this means. If Ryan is charged, the media will have a field day. Your entire life will be put under a microscope, and Ryan will fight you with everything he has. Let him, Claire said, her voice shaking but firm. I am finished protecting him. Just then a knock came at the door. Detective Walsh walked in, looking exhausted. Ms. Mitchell, Vanessa Hayes, is being formally charged this afternoon. She has confessed to everything, but she is also making very serious claims against your husband. I am aware, Claire said. Douglas just told me. Ryan has already hired an expensive criminal defense lawyer, the detective continued. He is claiming Vanessa was an obsessed stalker and that he was trying to let her down easy. He denies they ever had a relationship. Claire let out a bitter laugh. Of course he does. We have the emails, the recordings, and proof he paid for her apartment and other gifts, Detective Walsh said. His lies are well documented, but he is going to say you are an unreliable witness. He will blame it on pregnancy hormones and jealousy. He has already started feeding that story to the press. We saw some articles this morning, Emma added. His public relations team is already at work. Claire felt her blood pressure spike, and the heart monitor began to beep insistently. A nurse poked her head in the door. You all need to leave. This stress is not good for the baby. Just 5 more minutes, Detective Walsh pleaded. Mrs. Mitchell, I have to ask you directly. Do you wish to press charges against your husband? For what exactly? For his role in this, for reckless endangerment, for emotional abuse. We are building a strong case, but your testimony would make it unstoppable. Claire looked down at her trembling hands and placed them on her stomach, feeling her daughter kick. What kind of a father was this man? A man who called his own child a strategy? Yes, she said with sudden clarity. I want to press charges. The detective nodded. We will need a full statement, but not today. You need to rest. From now on, document every text, every call, any contact he tries to make. It is all evidence now. After the detective left, Douglas prepared to go as well. Wait, Claire said. What is next? We get a restraining order against both Ryan and Vanessa immediately, Douglas explained. Then we file for divorce and request emergency custody. Ryan will not be allowed to see the baby without supervision. Do you think he will fight us on it? Douglas gave a small, grim smile. He will fight everything. But Claire, he has already lost this war. He just does not realize it yet. When they were finally alone, Emma carefully climbed into the hospital bed next to her. I never trusted him, Emma said softly. From the very beginning, something about him felt fake. Why did you not tell me? I tried, remember? I told you he seemed too polished, too perfect. You told me I was just being overprotective. Claire remembered that conversation. It was 2 weeks after they started dating. Emma had told her, he feels like he is playing a part, like he studied how to be the perfect boyfriend. Claire had been angry and had accused Emma of being jealous. You were right, Claire whispered. I wish I had pushed you harder, Emma said. I wish I had made you see. I did not want to see, Claire admitted. I wanted the fairy tale, the perfect husband, the baby, the beautiful life. I ignored every single warning sign because facing the truth was just too painful. They lay there quietly for a long time. Outside, the world kept moving. Claire's old life was gone, but with Emma beside her and her daughter safe inside her, she felt a small shift. It was not quite hope, but it was a start. The woman who believed Ryan's lies was gone, and Claire was glad. The person rising from this disaster would be stronger, smarter, and completely done with men who saw her child as a strategy. 3 days later, the story was everywhere. A pregnant woman attacked by her husband's mistress at her own wedding. The story had gone viral. Videos and pictures were all over the internet, showing Claire's dress on fire and her desperate dive into the pool. She sat in her hospital bed, scrolling through the endless comments on Emma's laptop. Stop reading those, Emma said gently from her chair. I cannot help it, Claire replied. Among the messages of support were cruel accusations. People said she must have known about the affair. They wondered what she did to push him away. Ryan's smear campaign was working. Anonymous sources were telling news outlets that Claire had been emotionally unstable and controlling during her pregnancy. They were all lies, but they were spreading fast. Just then, a nurse came in. You have a visitor. It is Robert Mitchell. Security has cleared him. Send him in, Claire said. Robert entered, holding a large bouquet and a thick file. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 days. How are you? He asked. Like a liar, if you believe the internet, Claire said flatly. Robert's face hardened. Ryan hired a public relations firm to spread those rumors. I have hired a better one. By tonight, the story will change. He opened the folder and laid out several documents on her bed. "These are Ryan's complete financial records for the last 3 years," he said. "My accountant found something much worse than an affair." "What is it?" Emma asked, leaning in. "Embezzlement," Robert said, his voice heavy. "He has stolen $500,000 from the company accounts over the past 3 years, hiding it in small, clever transactions." Claire could not stop looking at the number on the page. $500,000. So that was how he paid for the Tribeca apartment, she thought. All the expensive gifts and hotels. He was stealing that money from you. Her father, Robert, corrected her. He was stealing from the company. That means he stole from every single employee and shareholder. Criminal charges are being filed, and the Manhattan District Attorney is now involved. "Does Ryan know yet?" Claire asked. Robert shook his head. "Not yet. He will find out when they arrest him, which will probably be tomorrow." Claire wanted to feel a sense of victory, but mostly she just felt exhausted. Her phone buzzed. It was Ryan. She had blocked him twice already, but he just kept calling from new numbers. "Do not answer that," Emma said. But Claire did. She put the call on speaker. "Claire, thank God you answered. Please, just listen to me." "No," Claire said, her voice surprisingly calm and cold. "You are going to listen. I know all about the embezzlement. I know you are about to be arrested. I know everything, Ryan. Every lie you told, every person you manipulated." There was only silence from his end of the line. "The police told you," he finally said, his voice flat. "No. Your father told me," Claire replied. "He hired accountants and investigators. They documented everything you did. Every penny you stole. Every email you sent to Vanessa promising you would leave me after our baby was born. Claire, you do not understand. I did all of it for us, for our future." "You called our baby a strategy," Claire shot back. "You told Vanessa that I meant nothing to you. You manipulated her so much that she tried to kill me. You stole from your own father. Nothing you did was for us. It was all for you. I can explain everything." "No. Your time for explaining is over. The restraining order says you cannot contact me. So this call is being recorded for the police. Do not call me again. Do not send me a text. Do not come anywhere near me or our daughter." "Our daughter?" Ryan asked, his voice cracking. "Claire, she is my baby too. You cannot keep her away from me." "Just watch me," Claire said, then hung up the phone. Her hands started shaking uncontrollably as adrenaline flooded her system. She felt powerful and terrified at the same time. Emma wrapped her in a hug. "You were incredible. I was scared," Claire admitted. "You were strong," Robert said. Ryan needed to hear those things. But Claire's chest felt tight. Standing up to him felt like jumping off a cliff. What if she could not do this by herself? What if, after everything, she still needed him? She immediately pushed that thought away. That was just the fear talking. That was the old Claire, the woman who nervously twisted her wedding ring and made herself small to avoid a fight. The new Claire knew she did not need a man who called their child a strategy. Suddenly, the door flew open. Emma's husband, Marcus, and their friend, Bridget, rushed inside. "Turn on the television!" Bridget yelled. "Put on Channel 7 right now!" Emma grabbed the remote. A news reporter was standing outside Ryan's office building. "We have breaking news in the wedding fire investigation. Sources are confirming that Ryan Mitchell, the husband of the victim, Claire Mitchell, is expected to be arrested tomorrow for embezzlement. Police sources allege that Mitchell stole over $500,000 from his father's company over 3 years. These funds were reportedly used to support an 18-month affair with Vanessa Hayes, the woman who attacked Claire Mitchell 4 days ago." The screen showed pictures of Ryan and Vanessa together. The evidence was impossible to deny. The reporter added, prosecutors are also looking into whether Ryan Mitchell encouraged the attack on his wife. Recordings have surfaced where Mitchell tells Hayes that they could be together sooner if Claire were out of the picture. The screen showed footage from the wedding of Claire's dress on fire and her diving into the pool. Ryan Mitchell's lawyer has released a statement denying everything, but sources close to the family describe a man who manipulated both women in his life while stealing from his own family. As the news cut to a commercial, Claire's phone began to buzz non-stop with text messages from friends and colleagues. They were all checking to see if she was okay. A text from her mother's best friend brought tears to her eyes. It said, "Your mom would be so proud of you." "The real story is finally out there," Bridget said gently, "not the lies Ryan was telling." "Everyone knows," Claire whispered. "Everyone knows what happened to me," Emma corrected her. "Everyone knows what he did to you." "There is a big difference." Then her phone rang. It was a number she did not recognize. She almost ignored it, but something told her to answer. "Hello, is this Mrs. Mitchell? My name is Jennifer, Ryan's sister." She was the bride from the wedding. "Hi," Claire said carefully. "I wanted to call you sooner, but I did not know what to say," Jennifer said, her voice sounding thick with emotion. "All anyone talks about now is the fire and the drama at my wedding." "I am so sorry," Claire said. "Do not apologize," Jennifer snapped. "That is all Ryan does. He says he is sorry his mistress ruined my wedding, sorry for the media attention, but he is not really sorry. He is just sorry that he got caught." Claire was speechless. "I called to tell you that I am going to testify against Ryan," Jennifer continued. "The prosecution wants character witnesses, and I am going to tell them exactly who my brother is." "Jennifer, you do not have to do that." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "I have watched him lie and use people our entire lives. He brought that woman to my wedding because he knew she was unstable. He did not care what might happen, because he only cares about himself." Jennifer's voice broke. "You were 7 months pregnant, Claire. You and the baby could have died at my wedding, all because my brother is a selfish monster." "We are okay," Claire said softly. "But you should not have to be just okay," Jennifer replied. "You should be able to trust your husband. Instead, you are in a hospital bed, burned and traumatized, while he acts like the victim on television." They spoke for another 20 minutes. Jennifer told her stories about Ryan's past, revealing a clear pattern of manipulation. After they hung up, Claire felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Later that afternoon, Claire watched Vanessa's arraignment on Emma's laptop. In her orange jumpsuit, Vanessa looked small and broken. Her lawyer argued for a lower bail, but the prosecutor showed the judge photos from Claire's hospital room. Later, her father came to pick her up. He did not take her to the apartment she had shared with Ryan. Instead, he drove them to a beautiful new building with— The judge listed the reasons for Vanessa's high bail: burns on her back and legs, the baby's fragile condition, and the clear danger Vanessa posed. He set the amount at $1 million, which she couldn't afford. As the cameras showed the courtroom, Claire saw him. Ryan was in the back, watching the woman who had tried to murder his wife and child. He was not at the hospital with Claire. Emma insisted he was only there to protect himself. Just then, she pulled up a news story on her phone. Vanessa's lawyer had released another recording. They all listened as Ryan's voice filled the room. He told Vanessa he couldn't stand watching her with Claire anymore, pretending to be happy. He said it was killing him. Then he challenged her. He told her to do something about it. He said if she truly loved him, she would find a way to fix their situation. Vanessa asked what he's meant. Ryan told her to stop complaining and start being strategic. He said he couldn't be with her until Claire was gone. He gave her a choice: either wait or make a move. After a pause, Vanessa's voice came through, sounding small and broken. She asked what he wanted her to do. Ryan replied that he couldn't tell her directly, but he painted a picture. He said if something happened, if Claire were simply out of the picture, then they would finally be free. When the recording stopped, a heavy silence fell over the hospital room. Emma whispered that he had told Vanessa to do it. Douglas, Claire's lawyer, appeared in the doorway. He clarified that while it was legally complicated, Ryan had morally encouraged Vanessa to remove Claire. The terrible truth washed over Claire like ice. Ryan had not just cheated and lied. He had wanted her gone, and he used Vanessa's instability to make it happen. Douglas confirmed the district attorney was charging him with conspiracy. Tomorrow, Ryan's entire world would fall apart. A part of Claire felt a fierce sense of justice. He was getting exactly what he deserved. But the part of her that once loved him felt a deep sadness for the life they could have built. She grieved for the man she thought he was, a man who had never really existed. That evening, Claire went into the hospital bathroom and leaned her forehead against the cool door. For 3 minutes, she just stood there, breathing through the storm of her emotions. When she walked out, she felt a little clearer. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was from a woman named Andrea at a crisis center, offering support services like therapy and legal help. Claire saved the number. She wasn't ready yet, but she knew she might be someday, a day when she could talk about this without feeling like she was breaking. Robert Mitchell arrived at 6 the next morning. He brought coffee and pastries. Claire joked that he couldn't keep feeding her, but she took one. Robert reminded her that she needed her strength, especially for what was coming today. Claire had barely slept, haunted by images of the man she had married. Robert asked if she was ready to discuss her future, but she told him she was still trying to understand her present. He sat down, looking older and more tired than she had ever seen him. He admitted quietly that he had failed as a father. He said he had given Ryan everything except for character. And now, Claire had paid the price for his mistakes. He insisted on finishing his thought. He told her he could not change the past, but he would make sure that she and his granddaughter were safe and secure. He said it was not charity, but his duty as family. Claire told him she was divorcing his son, and he replied, "Good." Robert said Ryan did not deserve her, but that did not change her connection to their family. He asked if he could be a part of his grandchild's life. Claire felt a lump in her throat. Her own father had passed away when she was 12, and she had missed that presence in her life. She agreed. Robert then laid out his plan. He had already secured a 2-bedroom apartment for her in a good neighborhood, paid in full. He had also established a trust fund for the baby, ensuring her financial security. He insisted it was not enough, but it was a beginning. He also promised to keep her on the company's health insurance permanently and that Douglas would handle her divorce for free. Tears welled in Claire's eyes as she asked why he was doing all this. He said it was because she was the daughter-in-law he should have always wanted, strong, honest, and kind. And he wanted to prove that not all Mitchell men were worthless. At 9 o'clock, Douglas arrived. He announced that Ryan had been arrested at his apartment 30 minutes earlier for embezzlement and conspiracy. Emma, who had brought fresh clothes for Claire, asked if he would get bail. Douglas thought he probably would, but the amount would be huge. He would be required to wear an ankle monitor and have no contact with Claire or Vanessa. Emma was angry that he would be walking free. Douglas reminded her that Ryan's reputation was destroyed, his assets were frozen, and he was effectively ruined. Claire said, "Good," and admitted she was not sorry to see him suffer. Robert told her that her feelings only made her human. Later, Detective Walsh came to take her official statement. With Emma holding her hand, Claire recounted the entire story, from the first red flags to the fire and the recordings. The detective praised her for being so composed. Claire replied that she had cried for 3 days and was now just angry. The detective told her to hold on to that anger because it would keep her fighting. After the detective left, Patricia, her mother-in-law, came to visit. She looked less put together and more vulnerable. She brought a bag filled with old photo albums. She explained they were from when she was pregnant with Ryan, and she wanted Claire to have them. Patricia admitted she had made many mistakes. She stayed in an unhappy marriage and taught her children that appearances were more important than the truth. She showed Claire a photo of herself, young and pregnant, standing next to a stiff-looking Robert. She was only 23 and already knew her husband loved his work more than her. But she stayed because she thought that was what she was supposed to do. She flipped to another picture of her holding baby Ryan, her smile not reaching her eyes. For 38 years, she had been lonely, believing that marriage was about quiet suffering and duty. She closed the album and looked directly at Claire. She urged her not to make the same mistakes, not to stay when she should leave or endure when she should escape. Claire told her she had already left. Patricia said, "I know. That makes you braver than I ever was." They talked for an hour, and Patricia revealed things Claire never knew. She shared that, at 61 years old, she was finally learning who she was. That afternoon, the hospital discharged Claire. Robert drove her and Emma to the new apartment. It was on the 3rd floor of a beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn, waiting for her to start her new life. Large windows. "It is beautiful," Claire whispered. "Your friend Patricia and I furnished it for you," Robert said. "There is a comfortable couch, a dining table, and a nursery painted in a soft yellow. We can change anything you do not like." But Claire loved all of it. It felt like a real home. Emma helped her unpack the few things she had brought with her. "I do not want any of the other stuff," Claire said. "Everything in that old apartment just reminds me of him." "A fresh start," Emma said with a smile. "Exactly." That evening, Claire sat on her new couch with a hand on her belly and just cried. They were not sad or angry tears, but tears of release. For 3 hours, she let it all out while Emma and Bridget sat with her. Around 11 at night, the tears finally stopped. "I am okay," she said. "You will be," Emma replied. At 2 in the morning, Claire was wide awake. The baby was kicking and turning, making it impossible to sleep. She walked into the nursery. Have you ever been so betrayed that you had to rebuild your entire life from scratch? That was Claire. Standing in a nursery she didn't create, she ran her hands over the crib, tracing the future her daughter would have, a future without her father. This story is about survival and finding strength in the broken places. If you have ever felt like an underdog, this will remind you that you are stronger than you think. At 7.5 months pregnant, with burns still healing from a fire set by her husband, Claire made a promise to her unborn child. "I will be enough for you. I will teach you to trust your gut, and I will never let anyone make you feel small." The baby kicked, a tiny sign of agreement. For the first time in days, a real smile touched Claire's lips. "We are going to be okay," she whispered. "Just us." After 5 days in her new apartment, the fog began to lift. The burns were new, pink skin, a painful but bearable reminder of what she had survived. The baby was healthy and active. Her doctor, Dr. Martinez, had told her to avoid stress, which was almost laughable. Stress was her new normal. Her friend Emma had moved in, refusing to let Claire go through this alone. Emma was a shield, answering calls from reporters and making breakfast, creating a bubble of safety. Her other friend, Bridget, visited daily, bringing news from the outside world. On day 6, Bridget had a surprise. "A gallery wants to show your photos," she said. They want to call the exhibit Survival, with all proceeds going to help victims of domestic violence. Bridget showed Claire the pictures on her camera. The wedding photos, then the fire. A haunting image of Claire, pregnant and emerging from the pool, her dress smoldering. They were horrifying, yet beautiful. Let them see, Claire said. If it helps one person leave a bad situation, then yes. That evening, a call came from Ryan's lawyer. Claire's lawyer, Douglas, put him on speaker. My client would like to speak with Mrs. Mitchell, the man said. Douglas did not hesitate. No. The lawyer pushed back, saying Ryan had a right to speak to his wife about their child. Your client has a restraining order, Douglas reminded him, and he is facing charges for trying to harm that child. So, no. We will petition the court, the lawyer threatened. Go ahead, Douglas said. I will see you in court, and I will bring the recordings of your client telling his mistress to get rid of his wife. Good luck with that. He hung up. Emma cheered, but Claire felt a chill. Ryan never lost anything without a fight. The next day, the fight went public. Articles appeared online with quotes from sources close to Ryan Mitchell. They claimed Claire had mental health problems. They said she was paranoid and controlling. The headlines were twisted. Was Ryan's affair a result of an abusive marriage? They were trying to make her look like the villain. Claire read every word, each one a new wound. Emma tried to take the laptop away. They're calling me crazy, Claire whispered. She said they are making it seem like I drove him to have an affair. Emma insisted that no one would believe the lies. But some people did. The comments on social media were a mix of support and hate. She is just playing the victim. I wonder what she did to push him away. Pregnancy hormones can make women unstable. Claire found her hands tidying the coffee table, arranging coasters by size, and stacking magazines perfectly. It was a panic response, a desperate need for control. That night she could not sleep. At 2 a.m, she was in the kitchen, her hands moving on their own. She pulled out flour, eggs, and ricotta cheese. She began making her mother's lasagna. The familiar motions were comforting. She layered the noodles, cheese, and sauce, finding peace in the routine. By 4 a.m, the lasagna was cooling on the counter. Claire sat alone at her table, eating a piece and crying softly. That is where Emma found her, as the sun came up. You made lasagna, Emma said gently. I could not sleep, Claire replied. It smells just like Mom's. It is her recipe. They ate together in the quiet morning light, finding comfort in the shared meal. Later, Ryan's sister, Jennifer, called. She had seen the articles and was furious. They are all lies, Claire told her. I know, Jennifer said. I called every reporter I could and told them the truth about Ryan's history. Thank you, Claire said, her voice thick with emotion. I am just so angry, Jennifer confessed. Angry at him, at our parents for always protecting him, and at myself for staying silent for so long. You are speaking up now, Claire said. It is too late, Jennifer sighed. Not for the next woman he targets, Claire replied. Your story will be out there. The next person can look him up and see the truth. There was a pause. Making this public is not about revenge, Claire realized. It is about protection. A few days later, Detective Walsh called with an update. Vanessa's trial was scheduled for 6 months from now. She wants to testify against Ryan for a reduced sentence. He said she has more recordings. Will it be enough? Claire asked. Detective Walsh sounded confident. The evidence is overwhelming. He is going to prison. The word echoed in Claire's mind. Prison. Her daughter's father. She expected to feel relief, but instead, a wave of sadness washed over her for the life they could have had. That afternoon, Douglas came with the divorce papers. He went over the details. You get full custody. Ryan gets supervised visits, but only after a psychological evaluation. He also has to pay child support. As for their property, Claire was surprised there was anything left. You will get half the value of the apartment, Douglas explained. There is not much else after paying back the money he stole. Claire signed the papers with a steady hand. How long will this take? She asked. It should be final in 90 days, Douglas said, unless he decides to fight it. He will fight it, Claire said, just to be difficult. And she was right. The very next day, Ryan filed a motion demanding joint custody. He claimed Claire was emotionally unstable and unfit to be a mother. He is delusional, Emma said, reading the court papers. He is desperate, Douglas corrected her. His life is falling apart, and the baby is all he thinks he has left. He does not have her either, Claire stated firmly. But later that night, doubt crept in. What if Ryan was right? What if she was too broken to do this alone? The baby gave a hard kick, as if sensing her fear. I know, Claire whispered, her hand on her belly. I am being silly. We are going to be okay. Still, the seed of doubt Ryan planted had taken root. At 3 a.m, she sat in the empty bathtub, letting the sound of the running shower wash over her. She just breathed. When she stepped out, she felt raw but somehow clearer. She was not broken. She was breaking open. She was learning that things that break can heal and become even stronger. The next morning, Douglas called. He sounded urgent. Vanessa's lawyer released new evidence, he said. You need to see this. He arrived an hour later with his laptop. Emma and Robert, who had started working from Claire's apartment, gathered around. Douglas opened the file. These are text messages between Ryan and Vanessa from 3 months ago. He turned the screen so Claire could see. Ryan's message read, The timing is complicated. I need Claire to carry the baby to term. After that, we can be together. Vanessa's reply appeared below. I am pregnant too. What about our baby? Claire gasped. Emma whispered, She was pregnant? Douglas nodded. Vanessa's next message was desperate. I need to know you are choosing me. Choosing our baby, not her. Not that obligation. Ryan's reply was cold and calculating. My father is setting up trusts for Claire's baby. You and I would have nothing. Can you handle that? No family support, living on a single income, Vanessa wrote back. Are you telling me to get rid of our baby because it is not convenient? Ryan's final text was chilling. I am saying you need to be practical. We are not ready for a child until I secure my inheritance. Maybe in a few years, we can plan a family the right way. Imagine being 6 months pregnant and discovering your husband secretly paid for his mistress to end her pregnancy. This is the story of Claire, a woman who learned her husband saw their baby not as a child, but as a strategy. It is a story about the ultimate betrayal, but also about the incredible strength that can be forged in fire. If you believe no one should be treated as a pawn in someone else's game, stay with me to see how Claire completely turned the tables. The nausea that hit Claire had nothing to do with her pregnancy. It was from the text messages she was reading. In them, Ryan convinced his mistress, Vanessa, to get rid of their baby, calling it a matter of smart timing. He sent the money for the procedure 2 months ago. He ended one child's life while Claire carried their daughter. His own father was speechless, realizing his son valued children based only on their usefulness. But something inside Claire did not break. It became as hard and as clear as a diamond. The texts were now evidence, proof of Ryan's psychological abuse against both women. As this new reality set in, Claire's phone buzzed. It was Ryan's mother, Patricia, sobbing on the other end. She confessed that she had spent years making excuses for her son, calling his cruelty ambition. Then she revealed a dark secret from Ryan's past in high school. There was another girl he had pressured, and the family had paid for her silence. Patricia admitted they taught her son that money could solve any problem and that consequences were for other people. After the call, Claire felt a cold, hard truth settle over her. The man she thought she had married was a total stranger. He was a performance that had never been real. That afternoon, Bridget's photo exhibit opened. Claire had no intention of going. It felt too public, too raw. But Robert persuaded her. He told her to let people see the survivor, not the victim. So she went, with Emma and Robert on either side of her. The gallery was packed with strangers staring at the worst moments of her life, captured in high definition. The photos showed her dress engulfed in flames and her face contorted in terror. They showed her dive into the pool and the horrible aftermath. But they also showed her emerging from the water, a hand resting protectively on her stomach. They showed her in the ambulance, her eyes fierce. They showed her signing divorce papers, her jaw tight with resolve. A woman who looked to be about 50 approached her. "You look so powerful," she said. "My ex tried to kill me 2 times, but I was always too afraid to report it. Seeing your strength, I finally filed charges yesterday." She gave Claire a quick hug and left. Soon, another woman came up, and then another. They shared stories of abuse and escape. One said, "You made me believe I could do it." Another said, "You proved that survival is strength." By the end of the night, Claire was emotionally spent, but she also felt a sense of purpose. Her pain was no longer just her own. It was a beacon for others. That night, unable to sleep, Claire opened her laptop and began to write. It wasn't a diary entry, just her thoughts pouring out. 3 weeks ago, my husband's lover set me on fire. 3 weeks ago, I learned my husband called our unborn daughter strategy. 3 weeks ago, my entire world fell apart. But we are still here, and I am getting stronger every single day. This is for every woman who is taught to ignore her gut feelings, who believed the lies because the truth was too terrifying. It is for every woman who stayed too long because leaving seemed impossible. It is not impossible. It is just incredibly hard. But you are harder. She posted it to the blog Ryan had shamed her into abandoning years ago. By morning, it had 10,000 shares. By the afternoon, 50,000 women had left comments, creating a community of shared strength. Claire's phone would not stop ringing with requests for interviews and book deals. "This is so overwhelming," she told her lawyer Douglas. He replied, "You do not have to do any of it. But Claire, your voice is important. You are helping people." Later that evening, Claire's water broke. She called out for Emma. "It's time," Emma rushed in, grabbing the hospital bags. "But you have 3 more weeks." Claire, with a hand on her belly, just said, "Tell her that." Robert arrived just minutes after their call, clearly having been waiting in his car downstairs. The drive to the hospital felt unreal. Claire's contractions were building, but she was calm. Her daughter was coming early, and Ryan would not be there. He had been legally notified, but her support team had strict orders. Ryan was not allowed in the delivery room. This moment belonged to Claire, and it would not be spoiled by the man who had called his own child a strategy. 4 centimeters, Dr. Martinez announced. "This is moving fast for a first baby." Claire smiled and said, "She gets that from me." The next 6 hours were a blur of pain and breathing, with Emma holding her hand and Robert pacing the hallway. But at 2 in the morning, things changed. "The baby's heart rate is dropping," Dr. Martinez said, her voice tight with concern. "We need to perform an emergency C-section." Fear washed over Claire. Is she going to be okay? She will be, the doctor assured her, but we have to go right now. In the operating room, Claire was alone. The anesthesiologist told her to count backward from 10. 10, 9, 8. Her mind raced through the fire, the betrayal, the divorce. 7, 6, 5. She thought about survival and the new, stronger person she had become. 4. 3. She thought about her daughter and the beautiful life they would build. 2. Then everything went dark. Claire woke up to the sound of a baby crying. A nurse gently placed her daughter on her chest. 8 pounds, 2 ounces, she said. Perfect APGAR scores. You did it, Mom. Claire gazed at her baby's dark hair and tiny fingers. Hi, she whispered. I am your mom. I am so sorry things are complicated, but I promise I will be enough for you. The baby quieted, turning toward her mother's voice. I am going to name you Grace, Claire said, for how we survived, and Eleanor after my grandmother. Grace Eleanor Mitchell, you are going to be amazing. Grace made a small, perfect sound, and for the first time in 3 weeks, Claire smiled a genuine, joyful smile. We made it, she whispered. 3 months later, her apartment was a wonderful mess of baby gear and laundry. Rocking Grace at 3 in the morning, Claire felt a deep sense of peace. It was not quite happiness yet, but it was contentment. Grace was an easy baby who slept in 2-hour stretches and ate well. Claire joked that her daughter was already judging her spit-up-stained t-shirts. Motherhood is not glamorous, kid, she would say. Her support system was incredible. Emma visited every day, Marcus brought groceries, and Patricia dropped off home-cooked meals. Robert came each morning to hold his granddaughter while Claire showered. She's a genius, he declared, after Grace stared at the financial news for a full 3 seconds. Ryan was facing charges of embezzlement and conspiracy to commit murder, with a trial set for 4 months from now. His lawyer had filed for visitation, but Douglas shut it down. The judge agreed with Douglas's argument. Ryan could have supervised visits only after completing court-ordered therapy, which he had refused. Claire felt no guilt that Grace knew nothing of her father. One morning, an email from a literary agent appeared in her inbox. The agent loved her viral blog post and wanted to represent her for a book deal. Claire looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully. What do you think? She asked. Should I write about how your own father called you a strategy? About the fire? About how we made it through? Grace sneezed. I will take that as a yes, Claire said. That afternoon, she began to outline the book. It would not just be her story. It would include statistics and resources to help other women. Every single photograph from Bridget's gallery show had been sold, with all the money going to women's shelters. The curator was even planning a national tour. You are becoming a symbol, Bridget told her. Claire replied, I'm still trying to figure out who I am now. Adding symbol to the list just feels strange. Emma laughed. You are Claire, mom, survivor, and a terrible cook. I made a great lasagna last week, Claire protested. Once, Emma teased, you made one good lasagna. The other 17 meals were questionable. They all shared a real laugh, a sound that had been missing for too long. That night, Claire received a handwritten letter from Vanessa. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter began, Claire, I do not expect you to forgive me. What I did was unforgivable. I tried to kill you and your baby. No apology will ever be enough. But my therapist says I need to. A few days later, a letter came from Vanessa, who is now in jail. She wrote that she took full responsibility for her terrible actions, but she also explained the poison Ryan had been feeding her. He had convinced her that Claire was a cruel and abusive person. He claimed that Claire had trapped him with the pregnancy. Vanessa, who was already struggling with her own issues, believed him. She thought she was saving the man she loved. Reading the letter in her car, Claire couldn't go upstairs just yet. She finally understood the depth of Ryan's manipulation. He had played both of them like puppets, twisting their emotions to get what he wanted. But understanding what Vanessa did was not the same as forgiving her. Claire put the letter into a growing file of evidence. Perhaps one day she would feel sympathy, But today was not that day. Today, she was focused on healing and being a mother to her daughter, Grace. At Grace's 3-month checkup, the doctor remarked on how calm Claire seemed. Claire just smiled and said, "When you have survived what I have, late-night feedings feel like a gift." That evening, she finally gave in to curiosity and searched for Ryan's name online. The news was filled with pictures of him at his trial. He looked thin and broken, a shadow of the confident man she once knew. The public comments online were harsh. Most people hoped he would spend the rest of his life in prison. Claire found herself agreeing that she and her baby were much better off without him. Then she saw a post from Ryan himself. He called his affair, his lies, and the conspiracy to commit murder one bad decision. He was still trying to control the story, to paint himself as the victim. Some people in the comments actually defended him. Claire immediately closed the web browser. His version of the truth was no longer her problem. Instead, she opened her laptop and continued writing her book. She wrote about building a new life from the ashes and finding joy in the quiet, middle-of-the-night moments with her daughter. As she rocked her daughter Grace back to sleep, Claire was filled with a fierce, protective love. In the soft light of the nursery, she made a quiet promise. "You will always know your worth," she whispered. "I will show you what real, honest love is. The kind that builds you up, not the kind that tears you down." For the first time in months, a genuine smile touched her lips. She was no longer the woman from before the fire. That person was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone more real. This new woman was enough for herself and for her daughter, and that felt like victory. 2 weeks before Grace's first birthday, a call came from the prosecutor's office. The attorney explained that Ryan had taken a plea deal. "He will serve at least 5 years for embezzlement," the lawyer said. Then came the surprise. "He is also giving up all parental rights. You will be her sole legal parent." Claire sat down, a strange mix of relief and sadness washing over her. She called her friend Douglas. "It is over," she said. "I feel relieved, angry, and free all at once." That afternoon, her friends Emma and Bridget arrived with cake. "To never dealing with Ryan again," Bridget toasted. "Grace will never remember any of this," Emma said, watching the baby play. "She will never know what you endured." "I will tell her when she is older," Claire replied. "So she knows that leaving is possible and survival is a strength." Later that night, Claire finally reread the 90,000-word manuscript she had written about her ordeal. It was good. She knew it was. With a deep breath, she emailed it to a literary agent who had been waiting patiently. "I am ready," the email said. Grace's first birthday party was small and filled with love. Just family and the few close friends who had become her lifeline. They sang happy birthday as Grace happily smashed cake all over her face. For a few hours, life was simple and joyful. After putting a clean and sleepy Grace to bed, Claire stood in the doorway, watching her breathe. 1 year ago, her life had been set on fire by the man she loved. Now she was stronger than she ever thought possible. Just then, her phone buzzed with an email from the agent. Publishers were interested. There were already 3 offers, one from a major company. They wanted her to be the face of a new series on empowerment. Claire stared at the screen. This was actually happening. Her story was going to mean something beyond her own pain. Later, she sat at her kitchen table, looking at the life she had rebuilt from the ashes. The apartment was filled with her daughter's toys and her own books. The scars on her back were a permanent reminder of her survival. The trust fund for Grace, secured by her father, meant they were safe. She had lost the illusion of a perfect marriage, but she had gained her true self. She had gained a daughter who would always know her mother was a survivor. The doorbell rang. It was Marcus, Emma's husband, holding a folder. "Emma thought you would want these for the book," he said. Inside were photographs. They showed the entire story. Claire in the hospital, Claire holding a newborn Grace, and Claire, 1 year later, smiling at her daughter's birthday party. It was the visual story of her journey from burning to thriving. As she looked at the photos, her phone rang. It was a Dr. Sarah Chen from the Women's Crisis Center. "We are hosting a gala," she said. "We would be honored if you would speak and share your story." After the call, Claire looked at her sleeping daughter on the baby monitor. She began to form the words of her speech in her mind. "A year ago, my life was turned to ashes by someone who claimed to love me. I was pregnant, burned, and betrayed. I thought my life was over, but I was wrong. My new life was just beginning. Healing is not easy, and I still have moments of doubt. But I also have a daughter who will grow up knowing that strength means asking for help, and that leaving a dangerous situation is always possible. I have a voice, and I am using it to tell you this. If you are in danger, please leave. If you are scared, please reach out. Survival is not just about getting through something terrible. It is about building a new life that is worth surviving for, and you can build that life one day at a time." Before going to bed, Claire checked on Grace one last time. "We did it," she whispered. "We made it through the fire." The air in the nursery was filled with the scent of baby lotion, lavender, and chamomile. It was the smell of safety, of home, and of a brand new beginning. Her new life was a beautiful, busy schedule of work deadlines and baby appointments. It was a normal life that she had built for herself out of the wreckage of her past. She knew her story was worth sharing. Claire wanted to give hope to anyone else who felt trapped in a dark situation. Her survival was not about revenge. It was about transformation and growth. She had been set on fire, but she did not burn. Instead, she had been forged into something much stronger. Tomorrow, she would wake up and continue to build that life, for herself and for her daughter. She had learned that the best revenge is not destroying the person who hurt you. It is living a happy, successful life in spite of them. That night, she fell asleep easily, finally at peace. If Claire's story of strength and survival touched you, please hit the like button so that others can find it. Leave a comment below and tell me what you think. Would you have been able to find peace as Claire did? I read every single comment, and if you want to hear more true stories about resilience, subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you for listening, and always remember, starting over is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of incredible courage. Model. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.